Howdy, howdy, folks. Fleeting distractions here. Now, if you grew up in the 90s like I did, which I don't know if most of you did or not, you were introduced to the Batman animated series. You would come home from school waiting for the next episode to drop. One of the first episodes from season one was called The Underlings, which dealt with a villain called the Sewer King, which to me, as an adult, I see as a villain almost worse than what the Joker was. And I found a video called "The Sewer King was the worst kind of villain" by Serum Lake. Go check him out. With anybody that I react to, I want you guys to go show them some love, show them some support for whatever content they make. And we're going to get into this one because it literally states the Sewer King was the worst kind of villain. As I stated in the episode, the Underlings introduced us to a true monster. Something that's actually quite believable. I mean, yeah, there's the gimmicks of like the costumes and things like that. But when you get past all the costumes, all the gadgets, all the fluff, you see what a true monster looks like. And a true monster, in my opinion, is one that harms the innocent children. So let's get right on into it.
I think that by now everybody knows that Batman the Animated Series was responsible for giving us a plethora of new Batman villains that have spread out to additional forms of media.
That is true. Harley Quinn was actually introduced in this series and became a staple in Batman lore. Bruce Timm did a wonderful job introducing Harley Quinn, and honestly, like, Harley Quinn is synonymously known. Like, if you say Harley Quinn, you know, oh, Batman. But she stands alone, even like with the New 52, where she steps away from the Joker and accepts her new role. It's more of like an anti-hero, I'd say.
Harley Quinn has practically taken over the universe,
Yep.
appearing in comics, video games, movies, and the t-shirt aisles of Hot Topics worldwide.
True.
Even lesser known BTAS originals like Lockup have...
Oh, I remember Lockup. Yeah, he was a Arkham security guard that actually used unethical means of making sure people didn't escape. Now, honestly, with villains like the Joker, the Ventriloquist, Two-Face, and even Harley, yeah, they were unethical, but they kept them from getting out.
made the jump to the comic books and the recently released Batman Arkham Shadow video game.
Ooh, I
However, there's a small subset of one-and-done BTAS villains that haven't really made a significant contribution to the wider multimedia DC universe. Such as the Sewer King from the episode The Underdwellers.
Okay, I said the Underlings earlier. It is the Underdwellers. That is my fault, but yeah.
Taking inspiration from Oliver Twist's Fagin and a little bit of Peter Pan's Captain Hook.
Yes, Oliver Twist. That is a Charles Dickinson story. It's, yeah, but Fagin wasn't honestly as cruel in that story as he is in this one. Yes, he was messed up, but I mean, even Disney did their adaptation of him with Oliver and Company back, I'd say in the late, was it the late 80s or 70s? I think it was the 80s because of the animation style.
The Sewer King is the clear highlight of this otherwise average episode. The Sewer King runs a gang of enslaved child thieves from the sewers of Gotham. The children are kept underground during the day to provide manual labour, harvesting sewer mushrooms and generally keeping themselves busy trying to keep the place clean. A Sisyphean task if ever there was one.
True.
By night, they're instructed to steal for their ruler. The Sewer King is a harsh taskmaster with strict rules of silence and obedience. Those who do not obey are chucked in a bright room for hours at a time, or potentially fed to his pet alligator.
Now, I don't remember them actually like fed to the alligators, but the torture of being put into a bright room. Because there's even a scene with Frog or Toad. I don't remember the name of the child that actually, like, Wayne or Batman actually saves or puts in the Wayne Manor. But bright light hurts them because they're kept in such dark environments.
While the children are dirty, malnourished and generally worse for wears, the Sewer King lives in comparative luxury, feasting on roasted meats and drinking from a chalice like a medieval king.
I'll be honest right now, watching this episode as a kid and even as an adult now, I am disgusted. It actually reminds me of the Steward of Gondor during the scene where in the Return of the King, was it? Yeah, it was Return of the King, I think, where his last son is actually riding into battle to basically die, and he's feasting on roasted meats and cherry tomatoes. It's just disgusting.
In the Sewer King's mind, he is a hero, taking in the wounded, abandoned children, offering
he's a
them a home
monster.
and teaching them a trade.
He doesn't teach them a trade. Yeah, I mean stealing, but that's not a trade.
Refers to the children as ungrateful because he took them in after they had been hurt by people living on the surface. While he never really elaborates on that, we can infer a number of possibilities. The way the children recoil in horror at the mention of possibly returning to their abusers tells us all we need to know.
Yeah, I have trouble watching this episode as an adult because it's just triggering in so many different ways. Like the Joker is a monster outright. I mentioned that earlier, like how he is literally a force of chaos, but this is a monster on a whole different level.
He may present himself as their protector, but he is an abusive cretin, screaming at the children, slapping objects out of their hands, and locking them up in his bright room to discipline them.
Wood chipper, instantly. I don't care if that's too far, but yeah.
These children aren't educated in any meaningful way, and instead are just his slaves. We get a great example of how terrified the children are of the Sewer King and the clamorous bell he uses to summon them to his chamber, like some...
He might actually state this later, but there is a particular scene coming up in this episode where Batman actually sees the condition that these children are living in, and he has to verbally remind himself to gather evidence. Like, he is that close to losing it and just ending the Sewer King.
Deranged school assembly. The Sewer King first summons the children because someone has broken his cardinal rule. Someone was heard talking. As punishment, the offender is dragged by the arm and thrown into the bright room. This bright light harshly contrasts the darkness of the sewers in which they live and is agonizing.
Yeah, I did.
We see the
earlier.
lengths the children go to in order to abide by this rule when one of the children accidentally hits himself with a tool and lets out a groan in pain. Another child reaches over and covers his mouth, not because he's a rule-abiding Jobsworth, but because he doesn't want this other child to be punished. Despite their harsh upbringing, or perhaps because of it, these children clearly have bonded through their shared trauma.
Yeah.
The Sewer King comes to Batman's attention after he witnesses one of the children, dressed in a green hood and a cape, committing a robbery. The victim of the crime claims that she was mugged by a leprechaun, which sounds preposterous. But in a city with a zombie snowman and a sentient pile of mud, I guess anything is possible.
True.
During his investigation, he explores the tunnels beneath the city looking for signs of life, and finds graffiti saying, "Beware the Sewer King." I like to imagine that the Sewer King wrote that himself. He seems like the sort. The
Yeah, someone whose ego is massive.
tunnels are marked with crude but efficient sound traps with tin cans on a string to alert the Sewer King and his gang of any intruders. Batman stumbles upon one of the children named Frog and takes him back.
Okay, so it was Frog. I knew it was either Toad or Frog.
Back to the Batcave. It's interesting to note that Frog is the name given to him by the Sewer King, an animal name, further dehumanizing the boy.
Yes.
We don't learn any of the other children's names, but I think it's safe to assume that they also have animal-themed names.
Yes, that would be safe to assume, so he could disassociate the children as nothing but subhuman.
When the Sewer King realizes that Frog is missing, he becomes hysterical. Not because he's worried about one of his precious children, but because he thinks he has run away. His reaction to seeing someone filling in for Frog's duties is a violent slap, knocking the bread basket out of the boy's hands, which is quite surprising given how strict the TV censors were back then.
True. This was actually like before even like cuss words were even allowed in even just basic TV series. I think one of the first shows to allow that was NYPD Blue.
Once Frog recuperated and grew to trust Batman, he took him to their subterranean dwellings. The sight of so many children living in close quarters wearing soiled clothes with all kinds of filth smeared over them enrages Batman.
This was the scene I was talking about where he has to verbally remind himself to gather evidence. It's like if you read Batman, anything in particular that involves children being harmed, you actually see the rage boiling.
Batman is famously very compassionate. He rarely hit.
That's actually something I do enjoy about the Batman animated series. It is tied into later comics where you see the humanity that is Batman. And it's actually one of the reasons why I enjoy watching or reading Batman. I think I heard it best. Batman will beat your ass 7 ways till Sunday if you're a villain. But like with Ace from the Justice League Unlimited series, he will also hold your hand at the end so you're not alone.
It's the mentally unwell supervillains of Gotham City. But in the Sewer King's case, Batman wouldn't have any qualms about showing him how weak and pathetic he is.
Yes.
When Batman arrives in the Sewer King's chambers, he symbolically tears down the bell, which both acts as a means of summoning all of the children and indicates the end of the Sewer King's reign. This whole encounter puts Batman's moral code under strain.
Oh yes, this was actually during season 1 of the Batman animated series. And as I stated earlier, this is, to me, was the first time we saw how close Batman was willing to give up his moral code.
Batman believes in the sanctity of life, that no one is a lost cause.
True.
But if there's one thing he cannot abide by in any form, it's child abuse.
True.
Inside, he is still the sad, wounded little boy that was traumatized by his parents' murder, and he identifies with these children. The Sewer King's abuse is very personal to him.
Yes.
Batman doesn't directly punch the Sewer King, likely because of the broadcast standard practices rules of the era, but he does come very close to allowing the Sewer King to die.
That is actually something they state in here, like where he says the Sewer King to die. There is basically a scene where Batman lets the guy fall into a pit full of crocodiles. Yeah. And wasn't really like, oh no, let me help you. It was like, oh no, something happened. It's kind of playing back on that Batman Begins line with Ra's al Ghul, where he's like, I'm not going to kill you, but that doesn't mean I have to save you.
Die. First, he kicks the Sewer King into a pool of water filled with alligators.
Alligators, okay, so crocodiles, alligators, my fault.
Now, Batman did call to him and offered to take his hand, but doesn't seem too beat up about it when he refuses. Fortunately for Batman's conscience, the alligators were never a threat to the Sewer King. They were his beloved pets, and they adored their master. They are less enamored with Batman, but that doesn't stop him from pursuing.
This is actually also a scene where you see the raw strength of Batman, because he, like, I don't know if they're going to show this in this one, but he actually, like, forces an alligator's jaws open. And if you know anything about animal science, like the crushing force of an alligator or a crocodile is insane. So for the fact that Batman's like to pry open this alligator's jaws so they crack, and yes, they do crack in the series, is insane.
The Sewer King. Batman's moral code is truly put to the test, however, when the Sewer King finds himself in the path of an oncoming subway train. Sure, Batman had knocked him onto the tracks before the train was approaching, but he was left dazed and confused, so technically it would have been murder. Batman could very easily have left him there to die and simply brushed it off as an accident. However, that's not who Batman is.
True.
Overall, I'd have to say that if it wasn't for the performance of voice actor Michael Pataki, then the Sewer King probably wouldn't have been all that memorable. He delivers an intentionally over-the-top performance that really brings the weak and pathetic man to life. I particularly liked how he would flip from a calm, soft-spoken person to a screaming lunatic foaming at the mouth within a second.
That is actually something I really did enjoy about the Batman animated series, and I can actually appreciate it more as an adult, is the voice actors. They brought these characters to life in ways that just worked. I mean, Mark Hamill as the Joker is a perfect example that everybody knows as. Like Luke Skywalker as the Joker, the way he just brings that laugh, and you know the laugh I'm talking about, how he brings it to life, it is still haunting to me. It still sends shivers down my back hearing that. And Kevin's voice as both Batman and Bruce Wayne is still something I set as a standard of how I hear Batman in my head. I mean, honestly, with 90% of the voice work that was done in this series, that's how I hear every character in my head whenever I read, the comics or anything.
However, unlike many BTAS villains, he doesn't have relatable motivations. While their murderous acts are wrong, we can at least understand why characters like Mr. Freeze, Two-Face and the Riddler go on revenge campaigns.
True. You actually see like the backstory to these characters and what set them on this. With the Sewer King, what you are left with is just a monster that harms children. And it's really symbolic because evil doesn't need a reason to exist. It's just the opposite of good. And what is worse than when evil targets the innocence of anyone? The
Sewer King, meanwhile, chews through the scenery as he screams at his army of children. The Underdwellers was one of those early episodes edited by writer Sean Catherine Derrick that was intended to have a message, and this episode is very clearly about child abuse, homelessness, how desperation and hopelessness drive young people to a life of crime.
Again, why I think the Batman animated series has set a standard to me personally, how I view Batman comics, media in all forms.
It's interesting to see what they were allowed to get away with in this episode. While children were generally not allowed to be endangered in most cartoons at the time, here we see Frog almost getting flattened by a train. One child.
That was actually something they did state with the Batman animated series. I think Bruce Timm said it in an interview somewhere. I will have to double check and see if I can state it. But they really, really pushed the limit of what they were allowed to show or do in this series during the early 1990s. Like, for instance, this is actually one of the best things I can think of. The Joker Venom, like how everybody just has that creepy smile. They don't technically die. But if you've read the comics before, during, and after, yeah, they die. But it wasn't allowed to show like death in the series. I think the first time we actually see death during this type of Batman content with the animated series is the Mask of the Phantasm, where actual mobsters meet their end. That is also a fantastic movie. Check that out.
Child is tortured in the Lightroom. Another is slapped for not telling the Sewer King that Frog was missing. I guess in this case these acts served a purpose and they weren't done in a sensationalist way. After this episode, the Sewer King wasn't heard from again in the DC animated universe. Presumably, he was sent to prison for a long time. He was briefly introduced to the mainline DC Comics during the year-long 52 series, and was immediately killed off by Bruno Mannheim as he made his bid for taking over Gotham City.
Good.
In 2020, writer Tom King reintroduced the Sewer King in Batman and Catwoman 1 as an early mentor for Selina Kyle. Note that his design and methods of disciplining his army of runaway children are very accurate to the animated version.
True.
He is one of the people that trained Selina Kyle to be a thief after she ran away from an orphanage, and when Andrea Beaumont's son goes missing, Catwoman turns to him to see if the boy is among his gang of runaways. It was a brief appearance, but I appreciate nods to Batman the Animated Series wherever I can find them.
Same.
While the Sewer King isn't one of the most memorable villains and he didn't make a particularly big impact on the world,
He didn't make a big particular impact on the world, but he did shape how I see real monsters. Like I said earlier, you lose the get up, like this weird costume that he's wearing that's reminiscent of old cartoony villains, and also the creatures. You are left with what I would consider a true monster.
I think he represents a very real evil. He's a lazy, abusive clod that targets the weakest
Okay, your subtitles say cretin, but you said Claude.
and most vulnerable people in Gotham and forces them to do his will. He presents himself as a caring mentor to these children, but in reality he's a vile and abusive figure. He may be a caricature drawing on literary figures like Fagin and Captain Hook, and is kind of laughable in some ways. Still, the threat he represents is a very real thing that vulnerable, displaced people face, particularly women and children. While the episode ends on a moment of hope, as the children are lifted out of the sewers and passed to the social work.
This is actually a really touching, deep scene as well. Because this kid in particular, this one, he is literally blinded by the light from just the sun. And going back, like I said, these episodes touched me as a child, but as an adult, I can truly appreciate how they did it. And it's almost brings me to tears sometimes when I watch these ones, just because of the content and the type of subjects they touched on.
Because Frog hails the light of the dawn, but I am left with questions.
Okay.
Many of these children had already fled the institutions and safety nets set up for them in Gotham. So what awaits them now? A return to their abusers?
That is
More
actually
neglect
true.
from a strained system that can't handle its existing workload? I have to hope that now that Batman is aware of their plight, he would intervene as Bruce Wayne to ensure that they were raised in a safe environment. That
is actually also something from the early series. Well, the early seasons of this series. You see more of like Bruce Wayne than Batman. And that's something I see a lot with modern adaptations of Batman. We just see Batman. But I know in the comics, Batman has referred to Bruce Wayne as his mask and Batman being his true self. But there are also moments in the comics where Bruce Wayne gets to shine. He shows love and compassion for Gotham. Yes, Gotham is a horrific fictional city. I don't know anyone in their right mind that would willingly live in Gotham. But with the earlier episodes of the animated series, we actually get to see the kindness that Bruce Wayne represents. He does more for charities, for foundations. He uses his wealth not just for the gadgets, for the armor, or for everything that makes him Batman. He also uses it to help the community, the city itself. And there was another episode right after this one where I think he was kidnapped, he lost his memory, but he also, like at the end of the episode, he regained all his memories and everything, and established more, not soup kitchens, but also more job opportunities for displaced adults or ones that were suffering from homelessness. So to me, like, I'm going to continue this episode, yes, but the duality of Batman is what cements him as my favorite superhero. You have Batman who faces the villains, who takes them out to try to make the city safer, and you have Bruce Wayne who uses his wealth, his influences, and everything to try and do the same thing to make the city safer for everyone.
May have been rescued from a monster, but it's very clear that the work was far from over.
The war never ends.
Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works.
Anyways, go check this person out. His name's Serum Lake. I'll link him in the description. I did like this video essay on Batman. I'm going to look more in his channel and see if there's anything else that's Batman related that I really do enjoy. As always, go check out the original creator, look at their works, like, comment, subscribe, show them some love for this fantastic video essay. To me, especially since I am like a Batman fan, I love this type of content where you actually dig into the characters or the setting, anything like that. And if you actually guys enjoyed this one, please let me know in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe for some more fleeting distractions, and I will see you all next time. Take care, and goodbye.